a great conversation at the Art of Transformation. I'm your host, Linda Stewart, and we are, of course, discussing breaking through your invisible blocks to health, wealth, and happiness. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm very excited to introduce you to our guest today, who is familiar with the many ways that our unconscious mind and our limited beliefs block us. He's one of the top clinical hypnotherapists in the world, and he's on a mission to help others. He's Dr. Steve G. Jones. How are you, Steve?
Oh, great, Linda. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Fantastic. So, Steve, I'd love you to share a little bit with our audience about your background, your story, and how you actually came into the profession to now becoming a leading hypnotherapist.
Well, I was in high school. I was in Riverside Military Academy in Gainesville, Georgia. My parents sent me to military school in high school in the 80s. You know, a lot of kids get threatened with boarding school or military school if they don't shape up, and my parents followed through. They sent me to military school. So there I was as a kid, and I was bored, and I was looking for a way out. So I found my escape in a book called The Complete Guide to Hypnosis by Leslie LeCron. He's a PhD psychologist who's no longer with us. But it was anything but complete. It was just a paperback book. But it was enough to get a teenage kid started on his journey. So I started hypnotizing my roommates. And soon enough...
Wow.
I'm sorry?
Wow, I said.
Yeah. As a kid, I used my bunk bed in military school. That was my couch. That was my therapist's couch. So they'd come into my bunk bed and lie down, and I hypnotized them. And soon after that, the word got out in the school, and the smart kids came to me wanting to get hypnotized to study more efficiently. The athletes came to me wanting to get hypnotized to get more out of their exercise. And so all these years later, it's the same thing I was doing as a kid, except now the smart kids are NASA, and the athletes are the Dodgers baseball team.
That's incredible. And how old were you at the time?
Well, let's see. It was around 1981 or 82 that I first started. I was born in 67, 77, 78. I was about 15.
Wow, that's amazing. So the obvious question is what is hypnotherapy? What actually takes place when you hypnotize someone?
Well, we don't know exactly what happens or why it happens. We do know, as far as measuring brain waves, that your brain slows down a little bit. It becomes more focused. It goes from beta, full awakening consciousness, to something called alpha, which is the lightest stage of hypnosis. And it can even go deeper, down to theta and delta, which are sleep states. But you can go into alpha without even realizing it. You can do that when you drive a car, read a book, watch TV, watch a movie, when you just wake up, when you're just going to sleep. You can think you're wide awake, but you can actually be in a hypnotic state of alpha.
Okay. So is that when you're driving, you mentioned, is that when you're sort of an automatic pilot, you kind of get to your destination, you don't really recall what happened from A to B? Is that the hypnotic state that you're saying?
Right. That's a perfect example. You know, so people who say, "Oh, I can't be hypnotized. My brain's too powerful for that." Well, we go into hypnosis. All of us go into hypnosis every day. We all go into alpha off and on throughout the day. That's just a natural part of who we are and what we do. The only difference in a hypnosis session is A, the hypnotherapist is causing you to do that in that moment by using relaxing words in a relaxing way, and B, they're putting positive suggestions in your mind instead of, you know, whatever song's playing on the radio, for example.
Right. So just how effective is hypnotherapy?
Well, that's a very big question. We call that the efficacy of hypnosis, how powerful it is. There's been a lot of research done throughout the years on that. It would be difficult to quantify into one number, just to say how successful is it. It depends on the hypnotherapist. It's very multifactorial. It depends on the hypnotherapist, their skill level, depends on the client and their state at that time, their state of mind, how relaxed are they. Depends on their hypnotic aptitude, which can be measured on a scale all by itself. Harvard and Stanford in the U.S. created a scale for that to measure it, to give a numeric value. So all of these things go into that. That answer would be very, very complicated.
Okay, there's lots of different factors
Right.
to determine that. But does everybody respond to therapy? Are there certain people who it's more effective for or less effective for?
Well, if we go back to the scale that Harvard and Stanford developed, which after completing my doctorate, I altered that to make it a simpler scale, by the way, and make it more of a quiz. But if we go back to that, everyone can get rated with a numeric value of how susceptible they are. They call it, I prefer the word suggestible, but they call it susceptible, how susceptible someone is to hypnosis. So I kind of like to look at it as electrical conductivity. Every substance on the planet will conduct electricity, even wood, but it's a matter of how conductive they are. So it's kind of like that with suggestibility. Everyone on the planet is suggestible when it comes to hypnosis, but it just depends on how suggestible they are. So everyone will get some degree of benefit from it. Some people will get more than others because they're more conductive, if you will.
Okay. So I've read that you've created over 9,000 hypnotherapy audios, and I love the portability of kind of just sticking your headphones on at bedtime. So what's the difference between me coming to a session to you and listening at home on my own? Is there any difference in that?
Well, there's a financial difference. You'll pay a lot more money to come to a session with me. Based on your accent, I would think your airfare would add up quite a bit. I'm guessing, but you would also have to make time in your schedule. Even if you just live next door, you'd have to make time in your schedule. So there's a cost that would be tremendously more. But there's also that's on one hand. On the other hand, as we evaluate that, the power of the hypnosis session would go up a bit if you came to a session. You would have that benefit. It would be a session about you, with your situation, with what you are dealing with. Whereas the hypnotherapy sessions that I sell are already created. I created those years ago without knowing anything about your situation. So they're less effective than an actual session. So you've got to kind of weigh it out. Do I want to take time out of my schedule? Do I want to pay more? Do I want to talk to someone one-on-one, reveal what's going on with me? Or do I want to just get a download that I can use in the comfort of my own home, which won't be as effective, but we find that if you use it on a regular basis for 3 weeks, the efficacy or the effectiveness of the program does go up quite a bit.
So when we think of hypnotherapy, we might automatically think of using it for, say, stopping smoking or losing weight, or perhaps overcoming habits and phobias, fear of flying, that kind of thing. But what I'm really interested in is how we can use hypnotherapy to transform our dreams into reality. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. We all have hopes and dreams and ambitions. We have things that we wanted to be when we grew up, and maybe we didn't become that. I was lucky. I found what I wanted to be when I was 15 or so, and I became that. I became that in that moment, and I just have continued to improve it since then. But most people who come to me for a session or who purchase a hypnotherapy recording are in a different situation. There's a disconnect between where they are and where they want to be. And so they do have these dreams of becoming an artist, musician, an artist of some sort, a writer, a doctor, a lawyer, something different than what they are. Hypnotherapy helps you get in touch with that almost childlike thought that you had, that you let go of because of practicality, gets you in touch with all of that. It also shows you a clear way to do it. And by showing you a clear way to do it, what I mean is you start looking after a hypnotherapy session on, opening up and living the life of your dreams. You start seeing the opportunities in your life that have been there all along, and you start trusting yourself to act on those opportunities.
Okay, so I think you're saying that the opportunities are there all the time, and you've just kind of opened your mind, if you like, in a way, opened your mind to what's already there. Is that what you're saying? Right,
exactly. For example, I go through some phases where I have a lot of gentlemen come into the office who want to get better at dating. That's ever since I was on the TV show The Millionaire Matchmaker, and I got known as the the dating guy or the dating guru. So people started coming in the office, gentlemen wanting to, date more efficiently, more effectively. And for them, they defined a success as dating a beautiful woman. Well, as it turns out, beautiful women were part of their environment already. It's not as if after the session, beautiful women started showing up in their environment. They've been there all along. It's just that they haven't acted on the opportunities that they've already had. And it's the same thing with wealth. People come to me wanting to make more money. It's not as if these opportunities haven't been there all along. They have. The new job possibility, the possibility for going back to school and studying and getting a better career, that kind of thing. So hypnotherapy just opens you up to taking advantage of and acting on the opportunities that are constantly presenting themselves anyway. It just gives you that extra confidence to do that.
Right. So it speaks to the fear really of doing the things that we're kind of perhaps afraid to do.
Right.
It's more confident.
Right, because you're looking at that, you meaning the person who's having that challenge, they're looking at them as things outside of your realm of possibilities. People draw a circle around themselves, and within that circle is everything that they're capable of, that they're privileged to, that they're allowed to do, and that makes sense for them. And we go through life with that circle. Well, hypnotherapy is all about erasing that circle, just saying that's nonsense. That's something that you just put in your head over time based on your experience and based on what people told you. Let's get rid of that. Let's see what happens when you get rid of that. Well, as it turns out, what happens when you get rid of that is that you're up for infinite possibility. Anything becomes a possibility for you.
Oh, that's very inspiring. So you're talking about you can actually use hypnotherapy to clear layers of programming that we might have from our childhood, etc.
Right, exactly. It identifies that as erroneous, as nonsense, as just something that's essentially fictitious that you believed in, and it allows you to get rid of that and move past it.
That's great, fantastic. So, Steve, you've been involved in hypnotherapy for over 20 years, I believe, and you've written 20 books on this subject, and as I mentioned before, you've created over 9,000 audios. Do you use hypnotherapy on yourself? And if so, how do you use it on yourself? Do you actually got any blocks left?
I do use it on myself. I have got some blocks left, which is what makes life exciting. And if we go back to 1982, let's see, that's 31 years now that I've been using hypnotherapy on myself. And I make a recording for myself when I want to work on something. There are always new challenges. Recently I finished up my doctorate in education. That was a challenge. That took about 7 years of doctoral study and dealing with a committee, and anyone who's gone through a doctorate knows that a real doctorate, and we have a lot of quote unquote doctorates now, but a real doctorate takes a lot of time, a lot of study, a lot of financial investment, and a lot of dedication. So I had to use hypnosis on myself to power through that. Also recently, I've gotten involved a lot in TV. That takes a lot to deal with. Anyone who's ever dealt with TV knows that when you deal with TV folks, it's a bit of a challenge, and you have to really have a thick skin to do it. And so I've had to work on myself with that. There's just always a new challenge. I'm always throwing out new challenges for myself that I have to work on, and so I use hypnosis every step of the way.
Could you give us an example about how you would use it for yourself? I mean, something specific that you've used it on. Is it around confidence or?
Well, for example, recently on a show that's coming out in a couple days, actually, on a network called Bravo here in the States, we flew to where was it? The Caribbean, and it's a reality show. So I had cameras in my face for 3 days as I was hypnotizing people and just living my life on this yacht they put us on, and it was a bit of a challenge, and I'd never had a camera crew follow me around night and day for 3 days while I was on a boat and there's nowhere to go. So I had to hypnotize myself to be okay with that, to be confident with that, to be comfortable with that, to still do my job because I was still doing hypnosis as part of the show. It takes a lot when there are probably 3 cameras on you at all times. and to still persist and do your job to the best of your ability. So that's one of the challenges I dealt with, which I know is not an ordinary everyday challenge for people, but that's what happens when you start becoming more and more confident. The challenges get more and more interesting.
Sure. That's fascinating. So I've heard you talk about the different parts of a hypnotherapy session. There's 5 different parts. Could you briefly talk us through the different parts, just to get an idea of what actually is going on in the session itself?
Sure, and this is not the right way or the wrong way. This is just my way. This is the way I've been teaching it for over 20 years now. And so the first part is called the induction, which is about between 10 minutes and 30 minutes long. The induction is just designed to induce the hypnotic state. You're just describing a walk in the woods or a walk along the beach, something relaxing for the person, involving all the senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, any sense that makes sense in that scenario. So, for example, if they're walking on the beach, I would describe the blue of the waves, the gentle breeze. You want to involve the kinesthetic sense of motion and feeling as well. So you can feel the sand on your feet, you can feel the breeze, you can feel the temperature, you can hear the birds. You involve all the senses. That's the induction. That's about 10 or 30 minutes of just describing beautiful scenery and getting the person involved in that. Studies show that you physiologically react to a scenario that is described enough. If you get enough detail, your body will start to react as if it's on the beach. In other words, you'll start to relax. And then next is the deepening, which is just 3 different things going on. You have downward counting, downward motion, and downward relaxation. So, for example, in the deepening, I could count from 10 to 1, and that's the downward counting. The downward motion would be the sun setting on the horizon. So the sun is setting lower and lower. And the downward relaxation is just the person relaxing. So the way I would set that up is to say, and now I'm going to count down from 10 to 1. As I do, the sun will slowly set on the horizon, and you will relax more and more deeply with each number I count. And then I simply start counting down. So that's the deepening. Usually about 5 minutes long will do. And then the script is where we're programming the person. We are initiating the change. So that's just pure programming. So I'm getting someone to stop smoking, to overcome fear of flying, to get motivated, to become confident, to stop nail biting. For children, perhaps stopping bedwetting. Sometimes we're working on something very specific that's been a challenge for them. And so that's the script. That's where I'm just programming the person. Then the next part, the 4th part, is amnesia. And you may wonder, well, why would we want them to forget this wonderful work we've done? Well, the reason is the conscious mind will analyze it afterwards. We don't want them picking apart the session saying, I know you said I would stop biting my nails, but I also know that I'm not going to do that. So we want them to not have a full conscious recollection. So you're not destroying the memory, you are just interfering with their conscious access to the memory of the hypnotherapy session so they don't undo it by overanalyzing it afterwards. The next part is transtermination, which is bringing them out of hypnosis. So if they're in an office session, I would just count them up to the count of 3 and they'd be out of hypnosis. If they're listening to the recording at night, I would just tell them to go into a safe and gentle sleep and they'd wake up in the morning. That's if I'm making a recording for home use. So again, the 5 parts are the induction, inducing them into hypnosis, walk along the beach will do. Deepening, where something is, sun is setting, something's going downward, counting from 10 to 1, and relaxing them more deeply, or deepening the work we've done in the induction. That's second part, deepening. Third part is the script, where we're initiating the change in them. The 4th part is amnesia, where we're causing them to not consciously recall the session. And the 5th part is transtermination, where we're either counting them up to bring them to full awakening consciousness or telling them to go to sleep if it's a hypnosis recording.
That's very interesting. It's fascinating. So, Steve, do you have are there common things that people come to see you for? Do you run the whole gamut of different things that people come for?
I do.
What clients do you have?
Well, since I've raised my rates, I usually get people just coming to me wanting to make more money these days, or I get producers, TV and movie producers wanting to just be more confident in what they're doing and move forward. We're talking usually these days I'm dealing with things where millions of dollars are at stake. so it justifies paying my fee. But in the past, I have run the whole gamut of all kinds of things. Stopping smoking and losing weight are big ones. Those are things that people really know hypnosis for, losing weight and stopping smoking. My father died of emphysema. He was a smoker, so I'm very adamant about that. I joined the American. Oh, thanks. I joined the American Lung Association in Los Angeles. Became a member of their board of directors, so I could sort of educate them and the Los Angeles population at large about the power of the subconscious mind in helping you stop smoking. So I'm very adamant about that, and those are two of the main things that people go to hypnotherapists for: losing weight and stopping smoking. But really, it's helpful for anything in which the subconscious mind is involved, which is pretty much anything you can think of.
So Steve, I'm absolutely fascinated by what you have to share. We've just got a few minutes left, and I know you've got a fantastic gift for the listeners. So how about you tell them about that now?
Sure. We have a free Overcome Fear of Success platinum recording. That's a platinum hypnosis recording for helping you overcome fear of success. A lot of people say they want to become successful, but their subconscious mind works against them because they're comfortable where they are, and they feel that becoming more successful would lead to more challenges. So they don't want that on a subconscious level. This helps you break through those barriers, that circle that you've drawn around yourself, as I mentioned earlier in our conversation. Helps you erase that so you can live the life of your dreams. So that's the Overcome Fear of Success recording. Now, it's a platinum level recording, which means we've got a lot of engineering extras in it. We've got some binaural tones, which have been shown to be very powerful in delivering a hypnosis message to someone's subconscious mind. I also spent about 2 years producing these recordings, and it cost me about $120,000. I built the sound studio, had it. I oversaw the construction, hired 2 college graduate sound engineers. We used Pro Tools, which is what they use in the movies. We had a handmade Rhodes mic, handmade from Australia. We had that brought in. So we used top-of-the-line equipment, everything that we could find. We assembled it in one place in this studio that I built. So that's how these platinum hypnosis recordings were developed. I know there are a lot of hypnosis products available. People just kind of get on a laptop and make one, but these are the opposite of that. These were built in an actual studio, overseen by me, and the sound engineers were college graduate sound engineers who were. We took about 6 months interviewing sound engineers, by the way. So these were done right, and this is a result of that. The platinum level Overcome Fear of Success hypnosis recording, which is a full hour long.
Wow, so it sounds like a state-of-the-art audio. It's fantastic. And this is a while you sleep audio as well, isn't it, Steve?
Yes, you just play it as you go to sleep at night. Professor Hilgard up at UC Davis did some research a while back, and among other things, one of the things that his research indicated was that even if you fall asleep, you still take in information. So you can fall asleep listening to this. Your eyes close, but your ears don't close. I mean, if you were to hear a noise in your environment, you would be awakened immediately because your ears work as a sort of a surveillance camera, if you will, of your environment. So because of that, the propensity that your hearing has to monitor your environment while you quote-unquote sleep, it can also record information. So even if you fall asleep listening to the recording, it's fine. So you just press play as you go to sleep on your iPhone, your iPad, or whatever you're listening to it on, and you just drift off to sleep. The hypnosis recording does the rest for you.
And your subconscious hears it all.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so details of how you can receive Steve's fantastic free gift of his Overcoming Fear of Success audio can be found on Steve's page on the Art of Transformation website, which is www.theartoftransformation.net, NET, so theartoftransformation.net/Steve. And if I were you, I'd probably go and grab that now while it's available. It sounds absolutely fantastic. Okay, Steve, any last words you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I always like to end with this, which is a song by the musical group America, and it's a reference to the movie Wizard of Oz. which is, the words go like this: Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. And of course, it's a reference to the Wizard of Oz giving gifts to the people in the Wizard of Oz, or characters in the Wizard of Oz. And the Tin Man didn't receive anything, just like the rest of them didn't receive anything that they didn't have already. It was just a representation of that. And that's the way I look at hypnosis. It's just a reminder of what you already have. You already have the greatness, the power, the beauty, the wisdom, the energy. You already have all of that. But sometimes you just need some sort of a reminder of the power that you have, some way to tap into it more deeply and more consistently. And that's what hypnosis offers.
That's great. Thanks so much for your insight. So finally, Steve, how do our listeners find out more about you, your amazing work, and the fantastic content that you've got to share? Where can they find you?
Well, they can just visit my website. It's stevegjones.com. It's just my name, Steve G. Jones, and then add .com.
Okay, that's great. So thanks again. Thanks everyone for joining us for another great conversation on the art of transformation. A huge thank you to our amazing guest, Steve Jones. Thank you very much, Steve.
Well, thank you, Linda.
Okay, bye for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.